Hey everybody, welcome to Game Trade Media's Board Games and Beyond, where we talk about all things tabletop. We've got a special episode today where we're going to be talking to the Dungeon Master himself from Critical Role. We've got Matthew Mercer. Thanks for joining us, Matthew.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure.
Absolutely. So we here at Game Trade Media obviously are big fans of Critical Role and all the things that you're doing out there, and we have a lot of questions. So let's just start it off. Let's go with so when did you first play D&D, and what was it about that experience that planted the seed that grew into the fanboy and fandom that you have today?
I first played D&D, it would have been my freshman year of high school, so it would have been 1996, I think, and second edition D&D, and I was invited to it by the heads of my club at the time, the Popular Arts Club, which was the secret way of saying the video game comic book nerdy club. And for me, it was, as a kid who grew up reading Piers Anthony and Tolkien and just loving high fantasy, it was the opportunity to create a story in that space that I really attached to. Even though most of my other players were a little more of the, min-maxer, kill shit, take loot type gameplay enthusiasts. But I think I saw the opportunity in there to make some really, really cool stories, and eventually took on the DM's mantle because I wanted to facilitate that more in the way I was looking for. So I began to learn how to dungeon master, began to choose friends of mine that I feel could get more into the narrative than the ones who had introduced me to the game. And I think that's really what got me hooked. It was the idea of being able to take these sort of stories that I grew up reading in novels and to build our own story, on the weekends in our, bedroom with numerous sodas and
Sure.
really terrible for you snacks. And it was just a cool introduction to that kind of creative control that I'd never had before.
That's pretty cool that you were founding it in your school club. That's really neat. I didn't have that opportunity in the '80s, and I'm glad that it did work out for you. God, that's so lucky, man. The '80s were rough.
I would say that the '80s were a harder time to definitely MDD find you, especially regionally where you were in the U.S. I remember distinctly, and even when I was getting into Magic the Gathering before I got into D&D, showing off the demonic tutor black card and having one of my teachers be like, that's a symbol of Satan. And I was
Right.
like, oh no, actually it's just a magic card, but thanks.
So let's talk about Critical Role. I know that there's a lot of critters out there that watch you guys. You had a little over 100,000, I believe, on your second season startup. Is that right?
Yeah, that was crazy. We, uh, I'm still kind of processing that. No right mind should have ever considered that we'd have, I think it was 125,000 live viewers that day for the first episode, to just watch me and my friends sit around a table, drink, roll dice, and make silly voices. It's kind of
It's
crazy.
the best. So how did Critical Role get started? I mean, what was the pitch?
The pitch was to us technically. So for one of the players, Liam, we were working on a video game together, and I was talking about how I've been playing D&D with friends and stuff, and he missed playing D&D. He played it as a kid, and so I told him, well, I'll run you one shot sometime. So for his birthday, he invited a bunch of mutual friends over who had never played before, for the most part, and I ran a one shot. They all had a great time, and it turned into a campaign. And so we played privately for about 2 years. And it was at a party that Ashley Johnson, who's one of our players, mentioned to Felicia Dave, Geek and Sundry, about this D&D game that she loves and plays with a bunch of other voice actors. And so Felicia reached out and was like, hey, you guys should do this on our channel. We were very reticent about it at first. We were like, oh, this is a very personal thing that the internet will probably set on fire. But Twitch was an emerging platform that allowed us to continue playing our game without having to change it for the media, which is a big thing for us. It's still a game that we're playing for ourselves. We want to enjoy it as we have been. If you just turn cameras on and invite people to watch, then sure, let's do that then, because then we're still playing our game. And so that's kind of how it happened. It wasn't even our idea originally. We were asked to do it, and we were very like, only if it doesn't change our game.
Sure. Now, you mentioned that it was a bunch of voice actors, as it is on the show. How were the main cast of players selected? Were they already, like you said, the homebrew players that you just brought onto the camera, or did you do any casting in regards to having new players?
No, it's our home group. It's pretty.
Nice.
It's just all the people that were playing at home. We weren't thinking in terms of cast or anything. I mean, at that time, we gave ourselves 6 weeks to see if anybody really cared about it, and if they didn't, we were just going to take our game back home. So we weren't thinking in terms of cast. We were just a bunch of nerds playing games, and then things kind of took off from there.
It sure did. You've actually had some pretty interesting people show up on the show. You've had, I've got a list of people here. You've had Felicia Day, you've had Will Wheaton, you've had, what's the guy's name, John Heater? Is that his name?
Had John Heater on there, yeah.
Chris Hardwick, Phil Lamar. Is there any celebrity types that you would like to have on the show as a one-shot that you haven't had yet?
Oh, man. Stephen Colbert.
Oh, that would be great.
I mean, if we're being honest here, that's the top of my list. I mean,
right.
If anything, just give me an excuse to talk nerdy Silmarillion Tolkien with him. But it's funny, as this is happening, I'm discovering and being introduced to more and more of this hidden underground Hollywood D&D subculture. You're starting to discover that a lot of celebrities or well-known people have always loved D&D, and just now it's becoming okay for them to be verbally proud of it. So I mean, if things continue, I'll see what I can do to get Mr. Colbert on. It will never happen, but the man can dream.
Well, you could always ask. I mean, Twitterverse, being what it is, people responded in the best of ways. Sometimes.
It's true. Sometimes.
Now, as far as the gaming industry itself, you guys have actually had a huge influence on the gaming industry. Now, what do you feel about being an ambassador to the general public when it comes to the whole game scene?
It's a lot of pressure, but it's I never anticipated or expected to be put in this position, but as an ambassador, I guess, to tabletop gaming, I guess it's nice to be in a place where I feel I can represent a hobby that's so important to me that has been misrepresented for so long by media and by social groups that are outside of it. I've heard in so many misnomers about role-playing games, and I've heard, and there are so many facets of the old gaming groups sometimes that can be very gatekeepery as well to what tabletop gaming's used to be. And so it gives me an opportunity to kind of bridge that gap and kind of break those assumptions and hopefully in my small way help form a much larger, healthier community, or at least try.
Absolutely. Now, as far as the friendly local game store, because we actually are one of the we are a big component of it. We always, at the end of our episodes, we say, go to your friendly local game store, support the local community. How important is the FLGS to the community, in your opinion?
For me, the local game store is where I grew up. That's where I used to go to buy my comic books when I was a very young kid. It's where I used to buy my early sets of my Marvel cards when I was in elementary school. It's where I used to play Magic the Gathering every day after school. It's where I bought all my role-playing game books. And today, I've been very, very particular to make sure that we promote small stores around the country, my local game stores here. It's been really cool. I remember there was a time in the 2000s where I got to watch two of my favorite gaming stores go away, and it broke my heart. And in recent years, we've seen more and more stores starting to show up, and it's been a very heartening experience. So whenever we have the opportunity to shout out on Twitter, to go in and meet the people there and help foster just awareness of these places, because it's not just a place of business; it's a place for community. Kind of what you're mentioning. It's a hub for people to come together of similar interests and meet friends and find game groups or find board gaming nights. And yeah, I think it's super important. I think it's where it's where gaming started.
I love it.
There were people that would play in their basement, but they'd all started from finding each other at game stores, finding each other at hobby stores. That was where a lot of this whole culture began, and I think it's a super important part of it.
Oh, I agree totally. That was a great answer. Thank you, Matthew. Now, voice acting in regards to what you're doing with this whole Dungeons and Dragons phenomenon. That is, I mean, I love this whole renaissance we're going through again. How does the voice acting and the role playing come together for you? How you have 1,000 characters that you voice. It's ridiculous. And how do you keep track of all those voices?
Notes, and not always keeping track of it well.
Okay.
I try and do the best I can. I got into theater because of D&D. It was my time as a dungeon master that I kind of began to find an interest in performing arts and creating characters. And a lot of characters that I've booked and performed in video games and cartoons, those voice prints began as NPCs in my home game. So there's a lot of bleed over there. For me, it's not an absolutely necessary part of running a game by any means. It just happens to be the skill set that I can use. There are people out there that are much better, probably at cohesive world building, or much better at building incredibly awesome strategic encounters. For me, my focus is in creating NPCs, creating personalities, and interacting with the players to build a conversation and a narrative that is engaging. So there are many different styles of GMing that all have their different strengths, and it's kind of another one of the great things about the game is every table is different and good for its own unique reasons. So even those that are watching our show, I can't implore enough to understand that not every table is going to be like ours, and that's a good thing. Because with the differences or things you might be like, oh, well, they don't do the voices as much. There'll be other aspects of that table that they do a lot better than I do. So appreciate those experiences at each table for what they are. As far as keeping track of it, I just try and keep track of my NPC notes next to the NPC's name with the general texture of the voice. If there's a dialect or an accent involved, I'll take a note of what the accent is. That way, if they ever suddenly show up in the middle of a session because
Right.
I wasn't expecting the players to want to talk to them, I can bring up my note sheet and with a quick glance, kind of have a ballpark idea of where they were last time,
Nice.
which is much easier to do at home than it is when it's recorded in perpetuity on the internet and people can go back and watch the videos and compare and be like, it sounds different now. And you're like, I did my best.
And I know with your huge fan base, with the critters being what they are, yeah, I'm sure they do go back and be like, well, Victor's voice sounded way different in this episode than he did in this one. And speaking of
yeah,
Victor,
I'm sure. I am but a mortal man.
the black powder salesman Victor, you did some sound bites for Sirenscape. What was that experience like?
Well, Ben at Sirenscape is a genuinely awesome guy. We met a couple times. I used to have to build my own home iTunes playlists and to want to add atmospheric music to my home game. And so he created a tool that made that a very easy and seamless way without having to actually find the music and assemble it yourself. And so when he brought it to me, I thought this is a really cool tool that not only have I been looking for myself, but a lot of people out there could utilize. Then he brought up the idea of doing these voice sets, and I was like, for a lot of games that want to have, those memorable NPC encounters, but they don't have the confidence to step into it to that full degree, or they want to just create a little treat for their party. It'd be a fun thing to see if people are interested in. So we met at Gen Con a couple years ago, and he'd created a small sound booth at his boot space, and so we went in there with a script and came up with a few different vocal prints, and Victor was one he had requested. I was like, okay, we could do Victor. And so he recorded him there, and people seemed to dig it. So
I know I dig it. I've actually used those sound bites myself. It was awesome.
Oh, that's awesome.
Bringing Victor into my home campaign, it was a blast. And Ben over at Sirenscape is amazing. Love him. Now,
such a good guy.
I do have some questions. I put a little note out to the critters and asked them if they had any questions for you. So I wanted to make sure
Oh
that
boy.
we give those individuals some love as well. So I have a few here. The first one is, what is your favorite drink?
My favorite drink?
Yeah. When gaming, let's say.
Ah. Wait, so we're talking like a drink?
Yeah, sure. Let's go with that.
I situationally will enjoy like a good ginger ale and dark rum.
Nice.
But if it's in a rush to go dancing, and you want a quick buzz, the Long Island iced tea definitely is a functional drink.
Absolutely. Now, as a RPG fan and D&D being your number one favorite, I'm guessing, what would be your next role-playing game that you enjoy?
D&D is my favorite, partially because of the nostalgia, 'cause it's where I started,
Mhm.
and as a person that grew up loving fantasy role-playing game, and or fantasy role-playing as a whole genre, it's where I live. It's my comfort food. But I really, really love the setting of Deadlands, the Weird
Oh,
West, the idea of an
I was
old
actually going to
West,
ask
but
you if
there's
that was the one you liked.
oh, it's so good. Because you have, I mean, the classic Old West genre is such a unique and interesting period of time.
Mhm.
And then add to that kind of paranormal elements, add, faint bits of demonic magic and this kind of crawling essence of working towards an apocalypse if things aren't done. That's just cool. And
Yeah.
the original system had, the casting system was based around playing poker with the devil that you're borrowing the magic from. And I don't know. It was a really unique role playing experience, both narratively and mechanically. So Deadlands is a very, very special place in my heart. And then I had to pick another, Paranoia, because
Okay, yeah,
very few
that's good.
games allow you to both die in character creation. That and Traveler, I think, are the two that I know of, or allow you to just play against your players in a way that's fun for all the players. A lot of games that have that kind of competitive element can hit a territory where it's not fun and it gets too I don't know, emotionally intense against each other. Paranoia has that Douglas Adams classic kind of British satire feel to it, where you can't take it too seriously and everyone's just having a fun time screwing each other over. So I love Paranoia.
I love it too. That's awesome. Great. These are great answers. I know the critters are going to love it. A couple other ones from them is, what are your thoughts on Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing in general being used as therapy with inmates, with kids with autism, being used in school for learning opportunities?
I think it's incredible. I know that role playing games have always been a very therapeutic thing. Both for me, it's gotten me through a lot of hard times. It's gotten me to come out of my shell when I was a
Mhm.
much younger, shyer kid. Um, and I've watched it help a lot of people I've known through very dark times in their life. I've read a lot of great articles on how it's helping kids with autism or with issues with social anxiety to build those skills in a space that is safe and fun. Um, and I mean, even just the response from the community since we've started streaming this, there's such an outpouring of people, and I would never have expected this. So many people that write to us or meet us at events that tell us that our D&D campaign, the story was what kept them from taking their own life. It's what helped pull them out of a dark space in their life where they needed something to look forward to. And then through that, they found their own home game and found a new group of friends and a new community. And they found, a purpose they had been seeking for a while, even if it is just within that group of friends telling that story. And so I think we're just still touching the tip of the iceberg as far as the positive elements of it. But the more people that are studying this, the more it gets out to individuals that could use that type of therapeutic experience. I think it's wonderful, and I
I
can't
love it.
I can't recommend it enough.
Absolutely. Now, besides role-playing games, which is my favorite genre of gaming, what other games do you like to play, be it board, card game, or just any tabletop game in general?
I mean, all of the above. Uh, I played a lot of I played a lot of Warhammer Fantasy back in the day. I had my Skaven army for a while, and then I played War Machine in recent years. My Protectorate of Menoth, and my wife Marisha was playing Crix, and we we get very angry at each other. So I enjoy wargaming. I'm a little more of a smaller scale. Like Warhammer 40K, I think is a little too big for my tastes as far as army size. But I enjoy wargaming. Love board gaming. We're heavy enthusiasts of like Mansions of Madness and have been since the first edition. We love card games. Red Dragon Inn's a classic. Bang. Yeah, I mean, you got a game, we'll play it.
All right. That's a great answer. I mean, I'm of the same thread, I guess. I pretty much have to play everything for work, which is
right.
Oh, boo-hoo.
I know it's a rough deal, man. It's real raw.
But yeah, I pretty much play everything as well, and the find that, you know, again, that someone with influence like you and everybody over at Geek and Sundry is really helping out the entire industry as a whole is amazing, and I love it. Let's see, I got just a couple more here.
Go for it.
All right, so the second season has begun.
Yes.
Is there anything that the fans can expect to see? Any teasers that you can give out?
I don't want to give any spoilers. I would say I'm. It's hard too because I don't know what the players are going to do. I have a lot of possible avenues, and especially this early in the campaign, where, you know, aside from a few planned events, it's kind of me building the story based on where they want to go. I will say you can expect that the Dwendalian Empire is going to be a little less morally definable as some of Tal'Dorei. Tal'Dorei definitely had politically a younger, more fair republic type system of law, and the Empire is there are good guys and bad guys on all sides. I think this campaign is going to be a little more hard choices based on allegiances made by the party. I'm hoping. We'll see if it plays out. I don't know. They might not even happen. They might be murder hobos forever. Who knows? But that's my hope.
Let's hope that they maintain murder hobo. I love it. Well, okay, I got one last question for you, and it has to do with your convention scene. What conventions can your fans expect to see you at this year?
Oh, man. All right, let me pull up a list so I can remember. I know I'm going to be at the Lexington Toy and Comic Expo in Kentucky in March. The actual dates I'm pulling up right now. Yes. So I'll be, it's March 9th to the 11th in Lexington, Kentucky. I'll be at Oda Fest in Calgary, up in Canada. I know it's not Canada. May 18th through the 20th. And I'll be at ACON in, I think it's near Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, I believe, June 7th through the 10th. I'll probably go to the 8th, the 10th, because Thursdays are a little, booked out for me for a while. But yeah, so those are the current events that we have currently on the slate that I'll be at. So come if you're in the area, come say hi, come to a panel, come ask a question, and we'll have a good time.
Well, hopefully I get to see you at Gen Con again this year. It would be great.
That would be awesome.
Now, that's pretty much it. You answer all our questions. We appreciate you coming on here, Matt. Matt, huge
My absolute pleasure. Oh, dude, I love what you guys do, and
thank you.
Onward and upward. This wonderful, wonderful hobby and community just continues to surprise and blow me away, and yeah, very, very heartening that what you guys are doing and what you guys are bringing for everyone. Just keep it up. Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful afternoon, Matthew, and then we will see you soon.
You too. See you soon, guys.
Right.
Bye.
Don't forget to subscribe to Game Trade Media, leave a like, and comment on what videos you'd like to see next.